Hello everyone. Basically in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to extract data, Fhir data from OpenMRS using the analytics engine through OpenHIm to the hapi Fhir server. So in this case, OpenMRS is the data source, OpenHIm is the middleware component, and the hapi Fhir server acts as the shared health record. This is my local OpenHIm instance. I can access the OpenHIm console at port 9000. So for now, I don't have any transactions recorded. This is the Docker Compose file by which I use to run the OpenHIm, my open local instance of OpenHIm. This is the port at which I access the console in the web browser, 9000. And that's the port at which the OpenHIm console can interact with the OpenHIm core. And the OpenHIm core listens to client requests at port 5000 and 5001. And I run the latest images. This is my local OpenMRS instance that is going to act as the data source. It runs at localhost 8080. And this is the hapi Fhir server that I'm going to use in my demonstration. And this is a publicly available hapi Fhir server. It runs at hapi.fhir.org. That's the DNS name. This is the Firebase URL used to interact with the hapi Fhir server. So I'm testing out my hapi Fhir server at that DNS name. But OpenHIm will not work with the DNS name, so I'll have to get the equivalent IP address and port at which that server runs, which is this, and then port 80. So I also test it out in Postman. Now I go back to my local OpenHIm instance to define a client. A client basically represents the client application that will send data to OpenHIm. So I set my client ID as hapi and client name as testing. And I also set in credentials that will be used to authenticate the client request into OpenHIm. So I set in my password as hapi123. So that means the credentials for the client will be hapi, that is, will be the user, and then hapi123, that will be the password. So I go ahead and then I define a channel. A channel basically is the path through which OpenHIm will forward data to the other server. So my channel, I call my channel testing, and it will accept all HTTP methods. This is used to define the endpoint to which this channel will listen to any client request. But in my case, I simply put in a regular expression. That means it will listen to any endpoint the client will forward to. And I defined my hapi client to use this channel. And I went ahead to configure the route. My route name is hapi Fhir. And here I set in the IP address of the hapi Fhir server and then the port at which it is listened to. And in my case, this is where I'm supposed to define the endpoint or the route path to which data will be forwarded to. However, in my case, I leave this empty. So that means whichever endpoint the client will send to is what will be forwarded as the route path. And the credentials here are used to authenticate this into the Happy Fire server, the OpenHIm request into the Happy Fire server. But in our case, since the Happy Fire server doesn't authenticate its endpoints, this will be irrelevant for now. Then I save my changes. Now I go to start running my analytics engine pipeline. And these are the parameters that I'm going to use. I'm going to run the streaming atom feed pipeline, which listens changes from the atom feed module in OpenMRS. And OpenMRS username is admin, and OpenMRS password is admin123. That's what those are the credentials for authenticating into the OpenMRS instance. And this is the OpenMRS server URL, localhost 8080 stroke OpenMRS. And in my case, the FireSync path, I'll point this to my local instance of OpenHIm, which is at localhost 501, since that's the port at which the core will listen to my requests. And then I also stroke the endpoint, which endpoint will be forwarded by OpenHIm to the server, since this is part of the Firebase URL. And then I define as my sync user as hapi. That is the client ID, and happy123 as the password to authenticate into the OpenHIm instance. So now I copy that and I go to the root folder of the source code of the analytics engine. So I'm going to start running my analytics engine pipeline with these parameters. So my analytics engine pipeline is starting to run. So it can now listen to any changes that are made into OpenMRS. So now I go into my local OpenMRS instance and I create a new patient. So the analytics engine pipeline will listen to this change and then extract the corresponding file resource from Fire2 module, and then forward that data to OpenHIm. I created my patient with names test happy, and then save my patient. My patient has been saved with patient ID 1008. Now I go to my local OpenHIm instance and I check the transaction logs. I can see OpenHIm has tracked the changes. The analytics engine uses a happy client to send the data. So the first thing the happy client does is to request for a capability statement from the Happy Fire server. So I can see that transaction was recorded. And the other transaction was recorded was the post, because I created the patient, which patient was sent as a post request to Happy Fire. So I can see my patient has been created with ID 1008, which is the same ID in my OpenMRS instance. And names test happy. So this is the response body from the Happy Fire server. This was the request payload that was sent to the Happy Fire through OpenHIm. And let me test out this resource ID directly from the Happy Fire to check whether my resource was successfully created. Go back to Postman. So I can see that actually my resource has been successfully created. with the same ID in OpenMRS and the same names. So basically, I have successfully sent data from OpenMRS using the analytics engine through OpenHIm to the Fhir server. And in my case, I simply use OpenHIm as a pass-through. There is no any data modification that was done on the request payload. So thank you for watching. That was it for now. Thank you.